I'm Tim Weber, Superintendent of Wyoming City Schools. As you know, we've recently made a change to our in-person learning mode for students. At this time, I'd like to address several questions that we've received about this change.
Our first question is, what was the decision to change from hybrid to in-person based upon? We moved from the hybrid plan to full in-person learning this week for in-person students based upon revised guidance from the Ohio Department of Health. Specifically, the Ohio Department of Health updated its guidance regarding social distance in classrooms when masks are used and quarantines following an in-classroom exposure for K-12 schools. Based upon recent studies and pilot evaluations, including an evaluation that took place here in Ohio public health authorities are saying that the risk of COVID transmission in schools may be limited with strict adherence to the prevention measures in a monitored environment. Moving forward, students and teachers exposed to a COVID-positive person in school are no longer required to quarantine as long as that exposure occurred in a classroom setting where all students and teachers were wearing masks and cleaning protocols were in place. These new guidelines do not apply to extracurricular activities, times during the school day when masking is not possible, such as lunch, nor does it apply to exposures outside of school. With this change in learning mode, our goal continues to be to provide as much social distance as possible in all classrooms. With all students who have currently chosen the in-school learning option, students and staff seating is placed at least 3 feet apart. Though there is a change to the amount of social distance in our classrooms, we will continue with all other elements of our protective bundle, including the use of face coverings, home-based daily health screenings, physical barriers, hand hygiene, and cleaning practices, and the all-online learning option continues to be available for students. Our next question is, when a case of COVID is identified in our schools, is contact tracing still taking place? The answer to this question is yes. We are going to continue to contact trace as we have throughout the entire pandemic. We will also continue to reach out to close contacts as we have in the past. The only difference is that sometimes close contacts will not be required to quarantine based on the new guidelines that come from the Ohio Department of Health. Our next question is, what data is prioritized when the district is making learning mode decisions now? On a daily basis, we'll continue to track our local data and evolving science, follow public health guidance, and monitor the academic progress and the mounting social and emotional needs of our students. We'll continue to consult with the Wyoming City Schools Science Advisory Team at least weekly. It's important to note that input from the Wyoming City Schools Science Advisory Team is considered when making decisions about learning mode, but ultimately the learning mode decisions are made by school officials. The diversity of thought and opinion represented on our Science Advisory Team continues to help us make the most well-informed decisions that we possibly can. The science of in-school transmission is early and preliminary. We're focused on continuing to learn about COVID-19 in K-12 environments and are running simulations based on foreseeable events. We are vigilantly watching for COVID-19 variants being identified in our area or transmission being indicated in our schools. In the future, it's possible that we'll see a need to shift our learning mode again on short notice, either from in-person to hybrid or from hybrid to fully remote, and families should be as prepared as possible for that event. We'll continue to share information at least weekly, and it's crucial that students, families, and staff members restrict their activities outside of school to minimize the risk of introduction of COVID-19 into the classroom setting. Our final question is, will we be changing our instructional mode based on Hamilton County moving to purple on the state's public health advisory? As I mentioned with the prior question, we base our learning mode decisions on local data and public health guidance. There are 7 indicators that are part of the Ohio Public Health Advisory System. These are new cases per capita, a sustained increase in new cases, the proportion of cases not in a congregate setting such as long-term care facilities, group homes, and prisons, a sustained increase in emergency department visits for COVID-19-like illnesses, a sustained increase in outpatient visits for COVID-like illnesses, a sustained increase in new COVID-19 hospital admissions, and the percentage of occupied ICU beds being used and the percentage of ICU beds being used for COVID-19 patients. The Ohio Department of Health advises that when a county is in purple, residents should only leave home for supplies and services, and our governor has consistently communicated that schools should be open for students if at all possible. The local indicators that we are watching to make instructional mode decisions include the number of cases among students and staff in our buildings, signs of transmission in our buildings, student and staff general absence numbers, our ability to strictly implement our bundle of protective protocols, and public health guidance for K-12 schools. Currently, there are cases of COVID in our community, and, as you would expect with that, we are seeing cases of COVID brought into our schools. We are not seeing a more elevated number of COVID cases brought into our buildings. Additionally, we are seeing no signs of transmission in our classrooms. At this time, we are not making a change to our learning mode based on Hamilton County moving to purple. We will continue to watch the public health advisory data, but we will focus our learning mode decisions on what is happening in our district in real time. If our local data should change or unforeseeable events come our way, we know that we still might have to pivot again to implement our hybrid learning plan or even our full remote learning plan.
We'll continue to provide updates on a weekly basis. If you have any further questions, please send those to covidquestions@wyomingcityschools.org.